Hello and welcome back to the third episode of the Cooked Lobsters. I'm your head chef in the kitchen, Ryan Weber. With me, as always, sous chef Brandon Drotter. We have quite an episode for you guys today. I can't tell you how excited I am. We're about to be traveling out to the Mechanic Falls Oxford line to High Rollers, where we're going to be doing an in-depth interview with owner and operator TJ. Trotter, tell us a little bit about what you might expect to come.
Well, he's going to be talking about a little bit about his rec store that he just opened. So it's medical and rec, which is a double bonus. That's pretty nice. And he's going to get in a little bit about the history of why High Rollers is the big commodity out here in Mechanic Falls.
Huge commodity.
Especially on 26. It's such a great location. But if you want to hear more, you got to listen to the rest of the cast, my guy.
Definitely one you're going to want to listen to all the way through. Put the kids to bed, hide the children, hide your wife, do what you got to do because the Cooked Lobsters are stirring up an interview today.
Couldn't say it any better, my guy. That's why you're the head chef, my man.
Well, we're going to go ahead, get the car rolling, get that gas flowing through the engine, and we are on our way for our first traveling interview. So let's get cracking. To our first traveling interviews with the Cooked Lobsters. Here's our first guest. We have TJ, owner, operator, High Rollers. How you doing today, TJ?
Super happy you guys decided to come in here. I'm just absolutely pumped, Really
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Definitely glad to have you here. It's going to be the start of a long series for us, but I know you got a lot of stuff cooking up here, so what's new on your plate?
So we're here in the medical store right now. So the medical store just had its third birthday, so we just hit 3 years. So that's been really great. We've grown a lot, developed a lot, learned a lot, and I think that we've been able to kind of elevate all parts of the business. Everything from essentially, vertically integrating. We're upgrading the grow, we're upgrading, our production departments, into all the products that we're carrying. We're getting better and better. And then the other big thing, obviously, is we just opened up the recreational store.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. On the same property, right next door. So we built a whole purpose-built facility just to kind of get into the recreational market, try to capture a little bit of that, the client base we weren't able to serve here through the medical store, because as you guys know, we're right on Route 26 in just outside of Oxford, right down the street from the casino. So we get a lot of tourist traffic, a lot of skiers, people going Western Maine, going to camps, all that fun stuff, but we weren't able to serve them, because by and large, a lot of people headed to the casino from out of state, they didn't have their med cards. So, so far we've been open just over a month so far. And, things are going great. The customers are responding really well. We're learning a lot. Things are definitely been, I wouldn't say super easy. Because recreational there's nothing about recreational is easy, and I think that I was a little bit naive, especially in our opening, is saying hey, listen, this store, essentially, we can duplicate all of our processes we're doing on the med side to the adult use side, but because essentially, you're selling cannabis, right? You're selling cannabis here, you're selling cannabis next door, but everything's different. Everything's different from having to wear your badge at all times in the store, having to log every single visitor in and out, to having to hand verify IDs, every single time, to see this tracking. It's been a big learning curve for us. So, but luckily, we're learning. We're getting better every day. Yeah.
But you remember at the beginning, every time someone's like, "Yo, is this rec?"
Right.
No. Damn.
Yeah.
You just walk out. It's that goes another patient notes right at the door.
Exactly. It did feel good today. Even today in the med store, the phone rings, and and I'm so used to having 3 years and being like, "Hey, are you guys med or rec?" And it's always like, "Oh, we're med only." And they're like, "Oh, okay, click." But today I think might have been the first time I was like, "Actually, we're both," and they're like, "You are," and I was like, "Yeah. We're both right here." And they're like, "Oh shit, okay, we'll come and stop in."
Must be so satisfying to always have the right answer to that question.
Yeah, so now it's like, I know if they're already calling the phone, it's either, I'm going to have an answer for them. So yeah, that does feel really good. Yeah.
So kind of going back to like the very beginning of everything, if you would, can you briefly describe like your background? What got you into the cannabis industry?
So, kind of a long story, but so I'll try to keep it relatively brief. So,
We got time.
I was dating this girl for a long time, and once upon probably a couple years in the relationship, she's like, "I want you to meet my dad," and I was like, "Okay, cool." He was a girl up in Bethel. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. And then so I met him, and he was like, once he realized I was cool and kind of a chill dude, he was like, oh, you need to come in the basement. And he had this big kind of earth floor basement in his house there, and he had super low ceilings, but he grew a ton of cannabis down there, right? And he'd been a grower for as long as any of us could remember and stuff like that. And so he kind of took me under his wing and said that, this is the life, really, because you're your own boss, you're making a product that people love, and it's fun to do, it's rewarding. And so at the time, I was a job cost analysis accountant. So I went to school and I studied marketing and accounting, so I was literally crunching numbers in a cubicle, every single day. And
kind of reminds you of like Office Space.
Oh, 100%, man.
Yeah,
I was, and I literally every day I watched the clock. I remember just sitting at my desk every single day, just watching the clock. Like, give me at 4 o'clock, give me at 4 o'clock, give me at 4 o'clock, so I can get out of here and live my life. And I hated going to work every day, and I just hated that life, and I just hated what it was doing to me. So, and then at the same time, strangely enough, my grandmother ended up getting sick. So she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, diabetes, and restless leg syndrome. So she was super, super sick. And so, she was elderly. And at the point, pretty much all the doctors said was, here's some oxys, here's some Vicodin, we're going to make you comfortable. And, they estimated they had they gave her 4 months to live. So during that time, those 4 months, she was, if you imagine your little grandmother, right, 83 years old, being, fed what my parents called horse pills of Vicodin. She was just masked on, didn't know who was there, and so on and so forth. So at the same time, my parents were like, well, we heard cannabis works really great for a lot of these things. So we tried that. So I didn't, but my parents taught my little grandmother to smoke out of a corncob pipe, because that's what she wanted to try. So she started smoking cannabis, and instead of 4 months, we extended our life for 4 years. Healthy, comfortable, and then it kind of like cannabis gave us our grandmother back, because she was an opioid mask. She was able to half her insulin usage. She was down to 1 pain pill a day, and she was able to sleep through the night with, not being woken up by restless leg syndrome. So that was really amazing, and that kind of, I don't want to say sealed the deal, but really instilled the fact that cannabis is medicine that works, right, with my family. And she eventually actually fell and broke her hip inside her home, and she needed full-time care. So the problem was, for full-time care, we had to move her into a nursing home. Nursing homes are very funded. They don't allow cannabis. They put her back on the pills, and that's when we lost our grandmother, essentially. So that's kind of like, it just even further just kind of, sealed the deal with us, or just really proved that cannabis is medicine. It works effectively, and it gives us, so much pain relief, cancer treatment. It kills cancer, and then it really so it had a really profound beginning in my life. And so we actually used our inheritance from my grandmother's passing to build our first grow in Ottawa. And so we kind of built it with her in mind, essentially in her memory, and that's what got me into cannabis. So it was a perfect world because I had a mentor at the time that taught me everything I knew how to grow, and we had the space to build the grow. We had, the money to build it out right the first time, and that's what kind of got us kickstarted, So I took out a big fat loan and paid for, my first couple months of rent, and the rest was history, man. We just kind of chewed through it, and that was back in 2014, 2015. Wow. So, long story, but essentially that's how I came to be here. And then, so I was a cultivator only for many years until, let me get to my dates right here, until 2023, so 2020. Yeah, right at the start of cannabis, or right at the start of COVID. I saved all my dimes, saved all my pennies, saved everything I made, because essentially I wanted, to have a goal, and pretty much by the time 2020 came around, I had enough money. I was like, all right, well, I think I can afford, to put up my first store. And it worked out perfectly because, scarily enough, COVID hit, right as I broke ground. And so I was like, oh man, I just like literally swung and missed so hard, dude. Like I just like, everything, the world's ending, blah, blah. I just spent all my money. I have no more money now. We're going into the end of the world, right? Is what we thought back in March of 2020. And
don't even get started.
Yeah.
Don't even get started.
Dark days.
Yeah, and then it had these weird blessings inside it because my contractors actually came to me and they're like, well, we could pack it up and go home, but they're like, we really want to keep working and just kind of like work through this pandemic. And I was like, hey, if you guys want to work, like, I'm down to do it. And they're like, yeah. So strangely enough, like all the orders for all of our vendors for like doors and windows, they had lost all their construction orders because a lot of construction companies weren't working. So they were like giving us bottom basement prices on everything. So I was able to actually afford the whole project. So everything got, cheaper, and I was able to afford the project. And that was 3 years ago. And then same thing. We kind of saved all my pennies, all my dimes, all my quarters, for the last couple of years until I was able to get through the permitting process to open my AU store. And that took me 2.5 years of permitting. The majority of which was municipal permitting. The town was the hard ones to convince. Because as you guys know, with cannabis, with any kind of retail operations, the towns have to opt in.
Yep.
So the town was the hard one to convince. So imagine yourself going to your little tiny town office, right? And literally, I'll never forget this. I would go to my first town office to convince them about the merits of marijuana businesses and how I can be an asset to the town that I live in. Essentially, and be like, let's change the law in the town, let's opt in, let's write the laws. And I'm literally sitting in this meeting waiting to get up and talk to the 12 people in this meeting, all the town's big nuts. And they're literally had to stop the fighting between towns members about other guys' rabbits and ducks crossing over on his lawn, So I don't know if you guys ever sat in on a local town meeting, like small town politics. It is that in an essence. It's little towns.
That might have to be a show one day.
Oh my god, it's small town bickering, and they're making it the mayor, the town manager, they're making it their business, So it's like I had to wait for them to stop bickering about these two grown ass men, bickering about their rabbits going across the lawn.
It just seems like something you see out of Parks and Rec or some shit.
Right.
Like that. Yeah. It's like ridiculous.
And so I get up there and I'm like, hey, I'm TJ Thayer. I'm here to tell you about cannabis. And they're like, what the hell is this?
Talk about though on presentation and attention.
Yeah.
You said that and you got everyone real quick to pay attention now.
And I think the important thing is kind of the mindset that I approached it with is, always provide exponentially more value than what you're asking for. So the first meeting, I didn't ask for anything. I said, hey, I'm TJ Thayer. I'm here to tell you about cannabis and its merits. And I'm just kind of here to provide value because cannabis is it's a thing in this world. Stores are coming to this area, and you guys might feel intimidated, because people are obviously, I knew they were already approaching the town about wanting to open retail stores. So I said, I want to help keep you guys up to date on the laws and provide value, right? Anything you need. And so pretty much I give before I ask, always. So I would go to every month's meeting and just be like, hey, here's what's going on the agenda in the legislative world on cannabis and marijuana and recreational and all that fun stuff. And eventually it took a lot of town meetings for us to get through pretty much permitting for both stores. The second store took 2.5 years. That's no exaggeration. The AU store. So long story short, we got it done, and it took multiple iterations of town officials and AHJs. It's a 37 jurisdiction because, I had officials that got elected and didn't like me for whatever reason,
Yeah, the way she goes sometimes.
Yeah, that's the way she goes.
Yeah,
It's just like
politics, eh?
Yeah, and pretty much in any local municipality, AHJs, they call a 37 jurisdiction because there's no one to tell them no. So if you imagine you're a code enforcement officer and your local town is an AHJ, Auburn, where our growth facility was full of them. And that meant any one of these inspectors, permitting folks, they could come in and be like, I don't like you, Trotter, right? And I'm not going to pass your permitting.
Whoa.
I'm not going to allow you to have your cultivation license this year because you have a cord plugged in the wall. And so I'm here. I see a cord plugged in. I'm going to deny your permit, and then you have to reschedule me. And then they'll dip on you or saying, oh, I read the law as that these electrical outlet covers are white, and I read that they can only be black. And you cannot go above their head, is the thing about it, because they have all the jurisdiction. So it's literally like you have to say, yes, sir, okay, sir. And then the best thing you can say is always, what would you like to see? What would you like to see?
Always ask them what they need. That's
what would you like to see?
100%
What can I show you to make your job easier? Because another thing I've learned about working in small-town municipalities is nobody wants to put their name on anything having to do with cannabis.
Yeah.
Right? Because, cannabis being volatile and
federally
illegal, it's a scary operation. So who wants to sign your permit, right? What town manager wants to be like, oh, yes, I gave, TJ Thayer a permit to grow this weed inside my town. Nobody wants to do it. So you have to make their job super easy and make them feel comfortable about whatever they are there to inspect.
Just to clarify for the listeners, what town were we talking about? You were talking about Oxford or Mechanic Falls?
So
right on the line. I wanted to go over that because
my cultivation was in Auburn, and that was very, very stringent because annually they'd walk through 7 inspectors at once. 2 police officers, they'd have a detective, they'd have fire, they'd have plumbing, electrical, and then your town tax people. Seven people walk through every single year. And then in town here in Mechanic Falls, they just have 1 code enforcement officer. So there was a time where the code enforcement officer and I were homies, and then we were not homies, and then they pretty much said that, we're not going to allow you to do anything, just because we don't.
One thing.
Yeah. Whereas that was the code enforcement officer wasn't even a resident of the town, so he's essentially reporting to the town council, which are all residents of Mechanic Falls, as am I, and then they're like, oh yeah, we want to give you this permit, we want to push you through, we want to help empower your business, we love what you're doing for the town, right. But code enforcement was like, nope, you're a drug dealer, I'm never going to let this go.
It's hard with that stigma. It feels like that stigma, we were even talking about, asking you a question about it today, but, that stigma feels like, how do you, get people out of that mindset of that stigma, that reefer madness thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's kind of, I'll take your question kind of 2 ways here. So, as a cannabis professional working in the cannabis field, I always have this saying is, drug dealers are always going to act like drug dealers, and business people are going to always act like business people. And being a cannabis professional, you have to identify, especially, in some of the seedier marketplaces, who you're dealing with. What kind of person are they? Are they a business individual, or are they a drug dealer? Right? So, and that, it still exists in Maine. It's still a reality of understanding, the differences, and because a lot of the wrong people got a lot of money early on, and they're still big players in this industry. So it's just, I only choose to do business, and give my business to reputable individuals that I know will, back me up on anything that I need them to. So, but as for reducing the stigma, I think that one of my favorite ways to do it is just show them the science. I'm a very data-driven individual, a very science-driven individual, and so I was given a burned CD of a tremendous amount of cannabis scientific data that this elderly gentleman had aggregated to cure his own cancer 3 times. And so he had aggregated all this scholarly data, all these scientific articles and then he literally had written these documents about breaking it down into a 12-year-old's kind of speak about, this is how cannabis works, right? This is why it works. And here's the non-refutable evidence that things like, did you know that every single cell in your body has a receptor, right? 2 receptors, that can only be plugged into by CBD or THC. It's the only things that plug in those receptors. So literally your body is already designed to be able to plug into these THC and CBD, molecules.
Right from birth.
Right from birth. Your body has an endocannabinoid system. So for them to say like, oh no, it's just a drug, like your body's built to handle this, right? And then that THC and CBD goes in there, and I'll wildly oversimplify this, but essentially it plugs into the mitochondria, which as we know, powerhouse of the cell, right? It'll literally determine if it's producing too much power to replicate too quickly and shut off the power and kill the cell. So as you guys know with cancer, it's the cell's replicating, it's making too much power, it's replicating over and over too much. So essentially that THC and CBD will plug into the receptor and say, all right, mitochondria, how much energy are you producing? How many times are you replicating? And it says, all right, you're replicating too much. It literally shuts off the power, and that triggers cell death. And that's how it kills little cancer cells. So these articles I got from this gentleman where language is playing this out, and then it had the breakdowns of here's the actual name of the receptor inside the cell, and it's triggering this ATP drop off in energy and production on these proteins. And so I was like, so to bring it full circle, my favorite way is to show people that kind of information. Show them like this cannabis oil kills cancer, right? How are you going to tell me that is wrong? That doesn't have a place in this world.
With like the education piece, do you find the education piece to be any different the way you would educate like a medical patient versus the way you would educate someone looking for more recreational flower?
Yeah, I think it's a different mindset. As a bud tender, we preach a lot of what we call EQ and IQ, right? EQ being your emotional quotient, that's your empathy side of things, and it's trying to essentially empathize with your customer as to why do they come in the store today? What do they need? What are they looking for? And then your IQ side of things is your intelligence quotient. That's your technical knowledge. This is how these things are made. This is why they work. This is the science behind all of these different dynamics of cannabis. So, and we really try to preach hard that a well-rounded bud tender has to use both their EQ and IQ to deliver a positive experience with every patient. So recreational, I think it's an pretty easy. This is kind of a wild generalization, but we have a lot more. Especially where we're located on 26th next to the casino, we have a lot more people that are kind of spur of the moment, pull in, like, oh, they have cannabis there. Oh, it's recreational. Oh, I don't have a car. Reel the car in. And they're not looking maybe for a more medicinal. They're like, I want to get high. I want to go spend some money at slot machines. I want to party today.
Yeah.
Right? That's by and large. I know that's still a wild generalization. Or, they're worried about, the stigma around guns, and that's a whole other story. But
yeah, don't even get me started on that.
I could talk a whole bunch about that, but essentially that, there's a lot more. I don't want to call them transient customers, but maybe a better word is one-time customer. They're traveling through here and they're pulling in and they're saying, I just want to try your shit, or I'm going to the casino. I'm just going to hit what's convenient.
Right.
Medical being the opposite, right? We have a lot more locals, a lot more price-driven individuals, a lot more people with much higher medicinal needs, dosage needs, because as you guys know, that all of our edible products are they're limited to 100 milligrams over there. So we have some people that literally can't get out of bed without 500 milligrams in the morning.
Right. So that's where like that recreational market just doesn't work well for in-state patients.
Yeah.
I get it, like with some people and the guns and that whole side of everything, but coming from, I worked at a medical store in Auburn that actually transitioned over into recreational, and I see the exact same things. A lot of those spur of the moment, like 1, 2 pre-rolls, like we're going to our hotel tonight,
exactly.
We're going to smoke it up, pay for the fine later.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
That's what you get, yeah.
Right. And so, we still try to obviously deliver, a quality experience, the same. We still work just as hard to make sure that the customer's leaving happy, that they feel that they got good value from their visit here. But in essence, our EQ side of things are completely different. We get a lot of people that are coming in the med side, and it's pretty regular that people are like, I'm really sick today. And you can kind of read their body language and talking to them and having that rapport, that harmonious connection. You can say, okay, this person probably doesn't want to have a talk about terpenes today. They literally want to slap their $20 on the table, walk out of the caprios, and see you later, right? They don't want to talk, right? Whereas recreational, I think that, hell, we got a lot of people that come in and just want to see the architecture. And they're like, well, I'm in here to buy a pre-roll or buy an eighth or something like that.
It is quite a sight to see, especially driving by at night is my favorite time. To get like a nice lights display going on out there.
Thank you. Yeah. So the building design actually stemmed from a building I saw online. It's a real building in British Columbia. It's called the Tobiano Discovery Center. And they have 3 of these identical buildings around this golf center in British Columbia. And I saw this timber frame building, and I was like, that is so freaking cool, man. So when I was thinking about designing for the recreational storefront, I actually sent a screenshot of that to the timber framers. Kraus Timber Frames out of Rundle. Shout out to them. They're awesome.
Right on.
And I sent it to Chris Kraus, and I was like, hey, do you guys what do you think about this design? Could you guys build me something like this here? And they said, yes and no. And I was like, what do you mean yes and no? And he's like,
no, right?
He's like, well, if you look at the timbers that come out the top roof line, they're so long and so straight. He's like, we don't have timber like that on the East Coast here. Whereas all the timber for the med store was built all out of pine. This is all locally sourced pine. Over there, we had to get Douglas fir from British Columbia.
Wow. So
that we could get the lengths and the strength out of the timber that we needed to build the building. So we literally had to source the timber from British Columbia. It got loaded onto a train and sent by train from British Columbia to Rhode Island. And because all the angles are so much more complex over there, they had to CNC laser cut all of the joints. Whereas here, all of the joints were hand cut, mortise connections. They used a lot of hand chisels, chainsaws, chain falls to kind of pull everything together. Over there, it was literally like a erector set, just like click. So I couldn't believe when I saw it, because when they put up the medical frame, it took them 2 days, 1 day for the frame, 1 day for the walls, and they were sweating, running, cutting a little bit here, cut a little bit there, just to get all the joints to mesh. Over there, they literally just plugged it in, and it was like, bink, and just pounding in the pegs, and you're done.
That's crazy.
So, it was a wildly different kind of, experience. But yeah, I haven't sent final pictures to the Tobiano people yet in British Columbia. I think that's still on my to-do list, but I want to see what they said. I actually called them and asked them at first. I said, hey, would you guys be willing to share your plans or your designs? And they literally click. So now I'm just going to be like, I did it anyway without you guys.
Well, just to let you know.
Yeah. Just so you know, I copied you guys.
Just send them a picture and don't say anything. See what they
I
say.
should. 100%. That'd be the best way to do
They're
this.
like, what the hell?
Definitely have to pull up a picture of that and throw that on our video feed for people to see.
Right. Yeah. So I'll just send a postcard just to the front of the building, and they'd be like, "What the hell?"
Straight mail it.
Yeah. But
talk about all that stuff, my guy. Tell us a little bit more about your brand, what you got making going on, what goes behind the glass counters up front, my guy.
For sure.
The doors.
For sure. So I've always kind of decided that high rollers is never going to be the cheapest weed on the block. This is, high rollers is not the store where you come and get the $60 ounces, $100 ounces. You'll never see that advertised on a sign. It's because that I really think that in a competitive marketplace, we have to really pick our niche, right? We have to pick our niche on what are we going to do the best here? What are we going to do, better than anybody so that customers, once they've tried us, they'll love us and they'll continue to return. And I think that, you look at all the 4 or 5 P's of marketing, right? You look at price, product, placement, and then promotion. Packaging is another one that sometimes people count. And so which one of those P's is going to be your best one, right? And I said, price will never be us. We're never going to be the cheapest weed on the block, right? We're never going to be the cost leader because, to be frank, people can grow outdoor weed for a lot cheaper than I can grow it indoors.
The race to the bottom is usually never the way to go.
Nobody wins.
No.
Right?
There's no winner in the race to the bottom ever.
Yes, there will always be customers for those $60 ounces, $100 ounces out the door all the day, but I think that you dilute your brand if you try to do all the P's. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I just like how you do it because it's just you believe behind your brand. You're paying good money for what you're getting. It's that's the point. And I just like that about you guys so much. You're not ever going down. You're like, all right, that's nice. You can go there.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is where we are.
Yeah, when we get those customers in here, too, they're like, oh, well, I can get cheaper on the street. I'm like, hey, I understand, and I think that we always you can obviously try a little bit of all the 5 Ps there. You know, you can dabble in it, but really you have to pick one that you're going to do better than anybody. And for us, it's really our place. You know, I said that I'm going to build the building right the first time. It's going to be big and beautiful and stand out. And if anybody that's driven up 26, they know the building. I mean, I ride up the chairlift at Senator River, and people will talk about the building not knowing I'm sitting on the chairlift next to them.
That must be really cool.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah, it feels good, and you know, and then obviously I always want to have great product, right? But I can't always grow the best product better than anybody, right? If you're going to be the product based, you know, that's going to be your primary advantage, you know, product P, you have to have the best weed all the time, every time. Yeah. And that is, as you guys know, I was working in cultivation before, it is wildly difficult.
It'll be that expectation with that too. They always have the exotics, the new stuff. You're going to be spending $250,000 a year just on getting new seeds popping and things going on. So that, I mean, there are people out there that are doing that. We love to talk to them because that's their own little niche in it. But that is, like you said, that's their own little thing going on. So there's definitely a place for both of it.
Yeah, and then because there's definitely, you know, smaller cultivators, you know, that can really hit their product, whether they're, you know, a hash producer or concentrates or even flower. You know, they just nail their product better than anybody. I mean, I can name so many of them that do that well. But for us, it's always going to be place is going to be the best, you know, and then our customer service and our experience. You know, that's what we really try to work on, and I spend a lot of time and money and training to practice with our bud tenders about how to read people, how to be an empath in a sense, and be empathetic to people's needs. You know, so I think that's what I always strive to do the best at. Yeah.
You ain't sugarcoating that either, man. Like you do have like the best customer service here. Like, and you ask anybody, like you do have like the best people. Like I like going there. The first thing I say is because like I feel welcomed. I feel like I'm not treated like stupid. Like I feel like I'm actually learning too. And it's just like what you guys do is just so nice and like.
Right.
I love everything you guys have. Shout out to all your coworkers that have the higher role.
Yeah, a lot of like what you said with the building too, just is super comforting coming in here. So that's like you definitely nailed it right the first time.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was another thing that I didn't really anticipate. You know, building the building is being where we are in Western Maine. This is a largely more elderly population. Oxford is an older county.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So a lot of our versus maybe like Androscoggin County or having Lewiston Auburn has a largely younger average age.
Not like Portland. Not like Portland.
But Oxford by and large is an older county.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, just looking at the average age of our general customer here, it's older. You know, I would say it's probably got to be over 45.
I was literally just going to say, I bet you it's 45 and plus is like your range, but it's also those people that are just like, they're on the cusp of like, this is okay now? Like, this is so weird walking in. And it's like, all right, are we allowed to do this? Is this like legal? Can we do this?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of the older generation come in, and what I didn't anticipate is that, you know, blah, 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 I haven't smoked weed since the 70s. I tried it out, but I decided to come in today because you guys have a really beautiful building, and I don't feel like I'm walking into a strip mall kind of weed shop.
Apple store.
Right.
Too much like lights and glass and everything.
Right.
You get the right balance going.
Right. That's one thing I didn't anticipate is that people, you know, were, I don't want to say turned away, but they're maybe turned off by, you know, those shops that are, I don't want to put anybody down because everybody has their own gig, but essentially like, there's different vibes at every shops.
Yeah.
Right? And some of them might not be the same vibe as an elderly folks from Oxford County. And I think that we did try to appeal to an more older generation here. And I think that's what allows us, you know, to, you know, my grandma and grandpa can come in and they can feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? You know?
I like that. Oh, go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels approachable for them. Yeah.
I like it too, is just because like since you get like the 45 and above, it's like they're more likely they got kids, and then they're gonna how you guys teach them while you're here, they're gonna benefit so much better than like someone else is like, yo, smoke this. It's like, why am I smoking? Like, what are you smoking? They're gonna be like, I'm gonna explain to you why. This is how you're gonna do it. If you're gonna be doing this, like, I want to make sure you're doing it right, like not for stupid reasons, and It's just like you're building great blocks for the future. That's why I like.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
There's a couple other big observations that I had, like holidays. I'd always kind of seen holidays as like a big retail events, blah blah blah. So I was like, all right, maybe Thanksgiving won't be that busy the day before Thanksgiving, right? Not traditionally a super busy shopping holiday. Maybe for groceries, right? Maybe for turkey or whatever, getting all the fixings for your holiday party. But it's also a big cannabis day, and it's not for the reason you guys think. It's what I hear by and large is I have to get this cannabis so I can deal with my family tomorrow.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a popular
100%.
And I never anticipated that, just because I have a great family. I love going to see them, but a lot of people are like, can't stand their family.
It's not always what you think, too. Sometimes it'll be grandma coming in, like, I gotta deal with the grandkids.
Yes.
So sometimes you expect it the opposite, but it's not always the case,
Right.
which is cool.
Right, so I'd never anticipated that being a big thing. It's people like, oh, I need this cannabis today so I can deal with my family. Not just because I want to get high with them, but like just so I can fathom, handling the grandkids.
So then to see that vein on top of your head for like the whole time, it's like, oh my god, I can't stand
Seriously.
this.
The one
Yeah.
popping vein.
Right.
Like, are you okay? I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah.
And now I understand that entirely, like...
It's the international walk that every uncle takes all of his
Oh, yeah.
nephews and nieces on after.
Exactly. The after, or the pre-Thanksgiving dinner, walk. Let's go walk the neighborhood. And I was like, although you never walked the neighborhood in your entire life. Yeah. Now we know.
Speaking of that, man, so how do you select the products you have and where the sources come from? Do you guys do in house? Do you get it from somebody else?
Great question. I'm a solid believer in trust and belief in the vendors that I carry from outside of high rollers. I don't want to sell your product unless I believe in what you believe in, and that we have similar mindsets and similar ideologies, essentially as it pertains to cannabis. What I really am trying to say is I want to trust that your ideas are aligned with mine, in a sense. So that's why I've super avoided certain companies that maybe had they went into business with sharp elbows. I think is the best way to describe it. And what I mean by that is sharp elbowed businessmen are people like, this is my space, right? I'm going to pass legislation so you guys can't work here with me.
Yeah.
Right? Sharp elbowed business. And I think that a lot, and to be honest, I started out that way in my career. Listen, I'm a cultivator. I'm going to carve my space. None of you guys are going to come in here. And then I learned that, listen, let's let the free market decide. Let's all have even playing field, even rules, and then let's let them free market decide, and then we can really pick the winners and losers here.
Right.
So that's my first priority, is making sure it's a company that I believe in and I trust and stand behind their product. Number two, I only carry products that I can fully test and stand behind myself. I'm the only owner of high rollers. It's just me. There's no big investor group or corporation. It's me.
No outside money.
Yeah.
Or
So-
from outside the country.
And
or any of that.
It's
So-
hard work too, for sure.
Right. Yeah. So it's just me behind the scenes, really. Obviously, I have a great team in front, out in the open in the public, but it's just me behind the scenes. So that's why I take the extra steps. Every single liter of distillate I've ever purchased, I only will buy them if they're fully lab tested from a Maine lab, and I can verify that result. Right? Do I have to pay? Do I legally have to pay for a pesticide test on every single liter of distillate? No, of course not. That's not a legal requirement. Do I do it? Absolutely. Because I'm never going to have the day where someone comes and says, what you sold me was junk, full of
Right.
pesticides, even if I knew it or not, or didn't know it. I'm not going to play that game, right? I'm doing everything above board. So that's another, when I am purchasing from outside vendors, then I only play with, lab tested, verifiable, and repeatable medicine. And what I mean by the repeatable side is that if my patients come in and they say, okay, Drotter, your Gorilla Glue flower is the best thing I've ever tasted, it's had the best effects, I want that back. I want to be able to offer them that same medicine to help deal with whatever medical ailments they have. I think that's really important. So yeah, and then kind of the final part with picking outside vendors is, I think I nailed the first two big ones. Those are the biggest challenges. Obviously, it's making it clean, dependable, reliable. repeatable. And but other than that, everything else we produce, like right now, all of our flour that's on the shelf is grown in house. Most of our concentrates are, it comes from our flour, our product. All our pre-rolls are all our product, and I would say about 80% of all of our edible products are our product. That's essentially our cannabis in any one of those gummies or caramels or whatever.
Tell you what, those gummies are absolutely tasteful.
Appreciate that.
I like them.
Honestly,
so
I'm a big texture guy. I can't do the texture of most gummies, and you hear that a lot from people. You get the best texture and the best taste. I had specifically the raspberry ones, and I'm not a fan of artificial raspberry taste at all. Their raspberry flavor is spot on. Like, it literally tastes like right off the bush.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So we have a great kitchen team. Our two chefs here. Sydney and Zach, shout out to them. They absolutely kick ass. They rock this world, and they are able to, again, produce dependable, reliable medicine. And I think that I'm really excited for them to kind of dive into the recreational market, because that's, as you guys probably know, we built a large kitchen/manufacturing facility inside the adult use store. So eventually, we will be, producing our own edibles out of that kitchen. And I'm excited for them to kind of take the reins and really execute and do those more stringent, requirements that AU requires. Yeah.
Just don't go Gordon Ramsay on their asses in the kitchen.
Oh man, yeah, yeah. It's no, they're really talented, and pretty much I don't have to ride them too much.
Can you imagine Gordon Ramsay in like an edible kitchen?
Oh,
dude, that would be crazy.
Yeah, I think that, I come from, I have a culinary background even before my accounting life, and so I love watching the kitchen at work, because the guys and girls that work in the kitchen here, they have such a massive breadth of information that's, might not be traditional as a pastry chef or a line cook or even a head or sous chef, grand marche. They have their own skill set.
It's their own line of work. It's their own category. It's like they do so much in that. It's
they're like the pioneers of a very specialization part of culinary arts, for sure.
I'm glad you said that, dude. It's just like I like how you watch the kitchen. It's just like if you're like watching someone in the kitchen is literally watching art. It's crazy sometimes with some of the stuff they make, and it's like you made that,
right?
And this tastes so amazing too. It's like, what? How is that possible?
Definitely where art meets science.
Yeah, it's a different kind of vibe, I think, from traditional kitchens, because what other line cook has all their results of everything they were cooked lab tested afterwards to verify the dosage.
Right.
So they know they're under a microscope every single day, every single batch, right? Because we lab test every single thing we make here on medical, just to verify what we already believe to be true. Sure, always trust but verify. Mm-hmm. So it's been, and our team continues to excel. That's what's one of my favorite things about producing in-house edibles is I can say, hey, listen, kitchen team, I want you guys to produce a funfetti 4th of July candy bar, and they're like, done. Heard, yes, chef, boom.
Yes,
one day later, package ready to go.
Right, and then it's out the door, and you taste it, and you're like, yo, I didn't even anticipate this, and I'm loving it. Yeah,
it's on another level. Yeah.
Speaking of 4th of July, is you got anything coming up for the 4th of July? Anything going on big for the company, my man?
Yeah, so, yes, on medical, we're in the process of integrating a lot more hash rosin into a lot of our edible products, trying to get a more full spectrum kind of product out there. So we're integrating more hash rosin into our chocolate bars. We're producing a specific 4th of July chocolate bar that's all made with hash rosin. And we're also about to release all of our hash rosin gummy line, which we've never done before. So that's really exciting. And then on the adult use side, we're still working on exactly what our sales are. We're still, honestly, we're learning a lot. And what I mean by that is, we're trying to figure out what we can afford, what we can try out, what kind of deals we can offer, and still make sure, the wheels stay on this train, right? Essentially. But no, we'll have for sure, I think our vendors that we've been working with have been really helpful, and they've been giving us a great boost, essentially in not only great products, but also a great mindset, educational materials, and so that we can essentially, all we have to do is essentially, pass our customers on to these great products.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, that's why I like these shirts. Like I walked in and I was like, yo, this is their shirts. If you have all the people that you can see on the visual, the high roller American flag sweatshirts with the HR, it seems so comfortable.
Good.
I'm just like already imagining myself by the fire with like a joint. I'm just like, oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm super ready for this, man. I'm excited for everything for your company, just in general, man. There's so many good things. Like you got the rec store coming, like that's open up, and you were talking about that forever. And it's just like now you can actually see your baby grow.
Yeah, it's a vibe, man. I think to put it lightly is, after all the time and effort and sweat equity, we've essentially put into, bringing this thing to fruition. But yeah, I think there's, I'm super happy you guys approached me to kind of do this. I call it an interview, but really it's not an interview. It's just kind of a talk between friends here.
It's just, a couple chefs just talking about some stuff.
Right,
some
chefs in the kitchen, dude.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think that overall my goal is always to kind of provide value, to people with like mindsets. So it's a lot of things that I've always tried to discover. Like, there's a lot of lessons I've learned in this industry. Everything from, how do I lock down an electrical price? To how do I explain to a customer that they can still have their guns and their weed?
Yeah.
There's a lot of little lessons that I'm like, how do I, I want to share this knowledge for free, because I think that a lot of it's valuable and it's taken me a lot of hard lessons to learn some of these things. So I'm like, all right, what can I tell the other cannabis individuals of the world, that will allow them to kind of, raise all of our levels together?
What would be the one crucial piece of advice that you would tell yourself starting off, or that you would tell somebody trying to start off in the industry now?
If someone came to me right now and said, I want to get into cannabis, I'd say pretty much you have to first identify someone that you really trust and believe, and then you need to picture them as the sun at the center of the solar system. And your job is to get as close to that sun as possible at all times. That doesn't mean go and take a job immediately with them or something. Like, you need to do everything you can to try to get as much information and much knowledge out of them. Because anybody can pick up a book at the library and learn how to grow cannabis, right? That doesn't mean everybody should get in the cannabis world, right? Some people, there's a lot of individuals that shouldn't ever run a cannabis business, but they'll make an amazing, number 2 in a business or a number 3 in a business, or they'll make the best edible chef or something like that. So I'd say you gotta first I'd say find like-minded individuals and try to center yourself as close to them, because that information you rubbing elbows with them will rub off on your knowledge base, and then really just go into it with an empathetic mindset, right? That you don't know what you don't know. Right, you're there to learn, and as always, do what makes you happy. I think there's enough opportunities inside the cannabis world, especially in Maine, that you don't have to stay with any company that doesn't make you happy. You don't have to stay in a job. There's so many opportunities out there. I want you guys to feel what I feel when I work every day, and that's the reason I got out of accounting, is because I hated my life, and I said I don't want anybody to feel like this. So I'm going to start my own company, and then I hope, to the best of my ability, that my employees come to work and they enjoy coming to work every day. So I feel rewarded. Yep.
Anything you want to say to the good people out there before we kind of cap it off today?
Good question. I think I've nailed a lot of the big things about it, but I really want to harp upon, anything that I can do to deliver value to, people in the industry. I think that I always say that Maine's a small town. Cannabis in Maine is an even smaller small town. Everybody knows everybody. And I think that there's all room on this table to eat. And I think that if you go into this business with a proper kind of mindset and understanding that we can all eat the same table, we can all exist and, and work together. And yes, there's going to be winners and losers in the marketplace, but we can all, be business people, and show up and just continually elevate not only ourselves, our companies, our bud tenders, and also our patients in delivering a better and better experience as a whole. And I think that's the big thing I want everybody to remember, is that, yeah, we can compete on this, but at the same time, who's the real winner out of this is the patients, right?
Absolutely.
Because we're working hard to make better, more repeatable products, that are going to help you out. And even if you just want to fucking get high, right? You just want to get blasted, we can do a better job of suggesting things.
Right, you make me smile so big. It's like, you couldn't be more right. Like, you literally could not be more right. But, like, one more question is, like, what makes your, like, high rollers flow just so smoothly? Like, what makes it go just like clockwork? What makes it go around?
There's a lot of things. It's tough for me to point out to one specific, kind of mindset or objective or ideal that kind of that really makes it work. But I think that, there's a bunch of different ways I could go this, but we have a great team. I think that's a big thing is, and I'm really a massive believer in kind candor and being candorous with your employees and having an opportunity to talk, and being present as an owner. I'm not in some ivory tower somewhere just dropping commands like, sell this for this price, blah, blah, blah. I'm in here, I'm working with the patients, I get behind the register and run transactions just the same as anybody else. And then I think that, as always, what I harp upon, I call them managers, but really they're leaders. And I always try to lead from the front. I would never put any of my employees on a task that I wouldn't do myself, right? You gotta be willing to get your hands dirty. You gotta be willing to get underneath those grow tables and scrub out all the drains and get in there, just absolutely the gross, disgusting parts of the work. Like, listen, I'll get dirty right in front of you, and if people give me a hard time, I love rolling up my sleeves and be like, I got a button up today. Watch me go get filthy right in front of you.
Bro, that reminds me of one of my favorite coaches of all time, Frank Kushner, Arizona State. He would never make a player do anything he couldn't do. Like, anything. It's just like lead by example, and like that's what makes it just
lead
so
from the
nice.
front. Yeah, lead by example, lead by the front. And I think that and then the leaders that I kind of elevate inside the business, they're the people that I believe do the best. They're the best at it, right? That's why they're the leaders. I don't like using managers because we manage tasks. We don't manage people. We lead people. And I think that, and obviously I think we have a great team that continues to just elevate, and they do a great job for even all the new hires we bring on and kind of allow them to be like, hey, this is the high rollers' way of doing things. We're going to go to the next level, not because we're legally required to, but because we're just going to do it better than everybody else. We're going to try harder.
So off that, like, what's the biggest challenge that you think that you guys overcame that you're so happy about? Like, if you could pick one or two things that you're just like super proud of.
There's things that like absolutely grind my gears week after week. I mean, there's things like, the banking's always a challenge. That sucks. Money management, cash management, trust in your employees and individuals. That's a super big challenge. Trust is always. I always tell all my employees across the board. I say, listen, I can't trust you, can't hire you. This is an industry where it might seem like we're all loosey-goosey, but we've all been in this business long enough to know the ones that are in this for the right reasons.
Absolutely.
Right? If you are in this business for the wrong reasons, they come to light very quickly. If you're in this because, like, I'm into cannabis, I'm going to get rich, like, I don't care about the people, the product, anything. Like, I'm here to make money.
Here to undercut every single person.
Right.
And just
sharp elbows all day. I'm going to pass legislation. I'm going to pass municipal laws, to make it so other people can exist. Those people will read you very quickly, and especially cannabis individuals. Because a lot of us that have been doing it for a long time had to do it, and that's all we had to go on. There was no business license. We literally had to go on a handshake and a gut check.
It's a tight community, too. I mean, you just do the wrong person dirty, and there's so many other people connected to that.
Right.
Just so many events and stuff that we were kind of actually talking about before, where, lots of different people from, like, hash makers, the growers, the store owners, everything coming together, and people always talk, and especially in this industry, like you said, it's like a small town within a small town. Yeah,
it really is, and I think that making sure you're getting into the industry for the right reasons, or staying in the industry for the right reasons, and just trying to be above board and be a beacon, be a reputable business, and luckily. 99.99% of all the vendors we work with, luckily I'm in a spot now where I can pick and choose who I want to work with because they're those individuals that are in this industry for the right reasons. But I think that's a big challenge. Is if you don't have that kind of that iron gut, I think, to really trust yourself, right, when you're reading someone, right, and also to weather the storm. I think you got to have a real mettle, man, a real mettle to kind of persevere through the tough times.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like you said, at the end of the day, it's all about the patients too. Like
100%.
I love the experience.
Right, and I think that that's what makes me happy when I go home every day. Is I have these interactions, because I'm in the store and I get to hear about how our products helped out certain individuals, and I think that's what keeps me grinding, man. Keeps me going every day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
what's like you said earlier that you were on a ski lift and you heard people talking about it.
Yeah.
What's like the most craziest thing that you had like a moment like that in the past? So, like, what was like, oh man, I would never have thought hearing that like out of the blue. You're just like, wow, that just blew my mind.
Oh man, I mean,
so
that's
you got to hear it. You said it. You heard it a couple of times. So
yeah, the ski lift thing it's happened to me a couple times, and that's always shaken me a little bit because like I'll literally be at Lost Valley or I'll be at Cinder River and I'm riding up the chairlift and someone will say like, oh yeah, I stopped at High Rollers and those. The team was so nice and the budtenders, they were absolutely the best, and I just like swoon, so hard because it's just like my pride, and I'm so thankful and prideful of my team, and that really makes me feel great. But then, the other crazy thing that's happened to me is I think that just meeting certain individuals in the industry, names that, they're not even big names, but people that just have those profound effects on other people, like that gentleman I met. I was working a cannabis trade show where was I? I was in Las Vegas. I was working MJ BizCon, the largest marijuana business conference in the world, about 4 years ago. I was showing off a product called Atlas Plant Trainer, and I was working this booth, and it was the end of the third day, and I was dog tired, and I had this elderly gentleman came up, and him and I just struck up a conversation, and then he actually came back on the show later that day to give me that burn CD, and he said, I've cured my own cancer 3 times. He's like, I just want to burn the CD for you so you'd have all of my knowledge. And like, I was like, this is kind of taggy, like, thanks for the CD, dude, like, this is weird. And then literally, like, it took me getting back to Maine, I popped it in my computer, and I was like, holy shit, like,
you didn't
wow.
process it. You're like, wow, that was actually like a really dope gift. Like,
Yeah.
thank you for giving me that. Like,
and that's
learning
been
all
like,
that.
yeah, because it's something that like I didn't understand the weight of it in the moment.
I was just gonna say, you're in Vegas, so it's like the last thing you think was like, oh, I really want to watch the CD again after just hearing
Right,
it.
I had, because all the people are walking through MJ BizCon are all the Chads and Brads. I mean, it's a $500 ticket.
Oh my god, those are the best ones.
It's $500 to get in the door to that trade show for one day.
Oh, I can imagine, man.
So for this individual that obviously was not like the rest of them, and approached me and gave me that disc, I felt like that was really like, there's some magic powers at work, and I've been thankful enough that I've been able to pass that information along to people, like family members that got sick, and be able to explain it to them in, like as though a 12-year-old is writing this book report on how cannabis oil kills cancer. And I think that really, it provides a lot of comfort, I think, for our cancer patients, because I can give them this information and they say, I mean, I wouldn't know where to go. I mean, you're going to trust your doctor on how cannabis? They're going to say, no. Like, they're never going to recommend cannabis to be your primary research or primary method of treatment. But, this...
No money for them in that.
Yeah, exactly. But this, information really, I think, helps them believe, and it helps provide them a lot of comfort and trust and solace. And, hey, listen, I have other options out there. That cannabis really works, So...
Yeah, dip your toe in the water, my guy.
Right. And it's been that was an underrated, I think, experience for me that I really look back fondly on now, and I am able to still hand out that information super easily. Yeah.
Dude, I'm still processing like this whole cast today. It's just like, wow, there's just so much I learned. I was just like, dude, like.
Hopefully, people out there got some good information. Hopefully, something useful today we can all learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
I learned a lot.
Right, and I think that thank you guys so much for having me out here, where I was given an opportunity to provide value for everybody here, and I think that I implore all the listeners here, to find a place where you can provide value to the world. Beyond just asking or providing sales or You know, those are all asks, you know, but we always want to give, you know, first. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I think as a patient too, it's just like, don't be scared to ask questions. I feel like that's such a thing that people go into is like, when you said they're newer, 45 plus, and it's like they're just dipping the toe in the water. It's just like, kid in the classroom, I don't want to raise my hand and answer the question. Like, I don't want to ask anything.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever have those patients come in and you're just like, I know, like, do you need help with anything, or is there like just like super shy?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time.
We get a ton of people that are you know, they have their own kind of. They still come in with an med card with stigmas, you know, and I think that, but really I love teaching. You know, I love science, I love data, and I love being able to kind of show the world, you know, that, you know, the magic that is cannabis, you know, and I think that, you know, the miracle that is cannabis, and yeah, so I love being able to work with patients and customers and saying like, okay, let's talk about phenomenology, you know, the study on the way certain things make you feel. Right? Because we all realize that sativa and indica are marketing terms.
Correct. Yeah.
Those are literally all made up for marketing. Yes, are some strains going to have more of a daytime active creative high? Yes. You know, are they all sativa branded, labeled, you know, marketed? No. Right? You guys might smoke a strain that's, you know, we all smoke the same flower and have 3 different effects. So I implore customers, try, find something, and then find a shop where it can be repeatable, right? So if you know that this works for your restless leg syndrome, find a caregiver, find a store that has a repeatable product where you can go back and get that over and over again and have the same effects. Yeah.
Especially having like new customers, like they don't have med cards, but don't you provide something like that, or do you go for somebody for that? Or?
Yeah. So Jessica Taylor from Chronic Wellness is our preferred nurse practitioner. She's in here every other Friday from 2 to 7. So it's really easy. All you have to do is call High Roller Store, and they'll sign you up for a 15-minute appointment. It's $40. We give you $10 store credit to be spent that day, and we can recert or initially cert. And Jessica is she's brand agnostic, so she's not going to push any kind of sales things on you. She's literally, you know, she's a practitioner, you know, but we love, you know, working with her to make sure that, you know, our customers are able to get recertified and continue to have clean access, dependable access to medicine. Yeah. So every other Friday.
Yeah. Definitely appreciate your time. Thank you for being the first guest on our traveling series. And
appreciate it.
Hopefully come back out at some point.
Hell yeah. Yeah, we can, we'll do this again for sure.
I hear your dog's trying to come in.
Yeah, my dog's
the most beautiful dogs.
Yeah, anybody that's been to High Rollers, they know, like my big Doberman X and then my little puppy Riley, you know, they're my shadows. They're with me every day at work, you know, most of the time. So
first time I walked in, man, I like walked in the door and I just see this bear, and I was like, oh, they got a mascot now. It's a legitimate black bear. And I said, no, it's a legit dog. It's massive. It's like up to my waist. This dog is huge.
Yeah, if you guys actually call and get the voicemail at High Rollers, it actually says, yes, the dog in the yard is ours. Because we got so many phone calls. They're like, there's a baby black bear in the yard, you know? Oh, someone's loose Doberman is outside. I'm like, the dog's ours. He's allowed to be outside. You know, he doesn't need supervision. He's okay. He just kind of does his own thing. Yeah.
I just love how you incorporated them in your apparel too, which is crazy. Like all your t-shirts and everything like that too. It's just like, you're always gonna remember too.
Yeah. He's my bestie. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You gotta get going, but hey, thanks for picking up a good conversation on the Cooked
guys.
Lobsters. Like it's always a great time.
For sure.
Till next time.
Thank you, boys.
Till next time, I'm cooking.
And everybody, thanks for tuning in, listening.
Stay cracking.
Yeah, stay cracking.
Oh, man, that was a killer cast, my guy. I don't know about everyone else listening, but that was just a lot to process. What do you think, Ryan?
TJ's going to be a tough act to follow. He came with the stories. He came with the knowledge, the wisdom. I can't say how much of an honor it was to actually have him as our first traveling interview. Nothing but great things to say about him. High Rollers, the entire establishment there. Nothing but very kind and friendly to us being there. Special shout out to TJ for giving us his time. I know he's a super busy guy. You can imagine with that new rec store opening up. Had a chance to check it out a little bit too. Amazing.
Very nice. Also, they got brand new apparel. That's why I was wearing this for the cast today. This is their USA sweatshirts. They got also that TJ's dog is like the mascot on their shirt, so it's pretty dope as well. But I can't get over how much information we went over today and like how much history went back into that. I learned a lot about TJ too. Hopefully all the listeners did too.
I hope the listeners definitely got some value out of this episode any way that you can. There was certainly a lot to take in and a little bit for everybody out there. If you want to continue to follow our journey here, make sure you can definitely follow us on Instagram. Continue listening to us on Spotify, or watch the video on Spotify as well, or on YouTube. Or you can catch the audio-only version on Apple. We're moving on. We just got a new TikTok also. So you can see some clips, trailers, and some best of videos that will be coming from the cast and some of our traveling events. Chef Trotter, anything you want to tell all of our great people, and there's more and more of them every day, part of our, our lobster pot of fans. Anything you'd like to leave them with today?
Like I always say, always glad to have the listeners out there listening for the support. We thank you so much for out there. And hopefully we just bring up new episodes like our next one we got coming up. Whew. I don't know if we even should tell the listeners about what's coming on, my guy.
It's going to be a burner.
It's going to be loud. It's going to be very exciting. So it's going to be a local place. It's going to be live music, good food. And if you really want to know, you're going to have to stay tuned.
And I've been told we don't want to give too much away because we don't want everyone swarming to us like we're the Beatles when we're out in a fine establishment. But we'll be out in Androscoggin County, I think.
Oh.
Ooh, big hint there.
That's a big county, though, my guy.
It is a big
It's
county.
a big county.
So we'll be out in Androscoggin County. More info coming up, but that's going to be a show you don't want to miss. I know TJ set the bar very high here today. But we got some high energy cast coming very soon for you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we got to wrap this up pretty soon because we got to make sure the float's tied down because they already lost it earlier this week, my guy. It's not a good idea to lose a raft in like the first week putting it out there. So
we're going to go tie down that raft before we get any problems. But everyone out there, you guys just stay cracking.
Stay cracking. Bro, you want to roll a blunt first before we do that, though?
Oh, yeah. I only smoke the finest. You got some of that high rollers?
Always. I got some of the edibles.